What's the difference between web and product design? Does it really matter? Which one should I choose? Why not do both? I talked with many digital designers and found that the differences are not that clear, so in this video we'll cover everything you need to know so that you can gain more clarity to move forward in your UI UX design career. Let's go! Hello my friends, if you're new to this channel and you want to stay up to date with my latest videos covering advanced web design and business skills, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications. So as some of you may know already, I've been a designer, a UI UX designer for the last 12 plus years. And at the beginning of my career, web and product design were not so differentiated. Now, as time goes by and as these professions start to grow, right, there's a bigger gap between both web design and product design, and the demand for specialized designers is growing faster. So now let's talk about similarities and differences when it comes to web design and product design. Let's talk about the differences, right? There's quite a few differences and I want to cover all of them. So first off, the result, right? The result of working with web design is that you're going to create a website. And if you're working with product design, as a product designer, you're going to be creating apps or products, right? We call it products, but it's really apps because products can also be like real world products, right? So we're talking about web and mobile apps, right? So that's the result of your of your work, right? And so you gotta ponder what do you prefer, right? Do you prefer working on websites or do you prefer working on web apps or mobile apps? Now the second thing is the goals. The goal of web design is marketing, right? To be able to help companies tell their story and their unique edge in a way that convinces or clarifies for the user that's looking at the website if their company, their service is the right service or company to hire or to purchase. So that's the goal of web design. Now on the product design side, when you're working as a product designer, you're working inside a business tool or a tool basically, that will help users achieve certain goals, right? Like Google Docs helps people write documents, right? And so the goal of a product designer is to build those products, build those web apps or mobile apps. You could say that web design is more geared towards growing a business, right? Getting more clients, and product design is geared towards the service that the business provides to their actual clients. So that's one way to see it. So third is the style, right? The style of work for web design is more expressive, and the style of work for product design is more straightforward. With web design, you have more creative freedom to experiment and do things that are out of the norm. But with product design, you have to be very safe and you have to make sure that you tackle the goals and it's highly functional. So there's not a lot of room for experimentation. So the fourth thing, the scale, right? That's a big thing, big difference. So websites usually tend to be small. There's some exceptions like blogs or magazines, stuff like that. But in general, websites tend to be small in scale. And so in terms of the amount of screens, it's definitely going to be a big difference between product and web design. Now, in terms of the length of the projects, right, you're going to probably, with web design, you're going to work with projects with around 2 weeks to 3 months. But with product design, you're going to be involved in projects that maybe last 2 years, 3 years, or whatever amount of time you really decide to stay in the company, because the company lives from the product, right, that they offer. So you can live your whole career working on one product if you want. So The fifth thing that is a difference between web and product are the skills, right? In web design, we have storytelling, advanced graphic design, art direction, creative direction, animation, interaction design, business strategy, branding, information architecture, right? When it comes to product design, it's more about prototyping, user research, user personas, wireframing, interaction design as well, but in a different way. Basic graphic design, so you don't need an advanced level in graphic design, and and then flow maps and also information architecture. So there's a difference between the skills that you need with product and web, but you can see that there are some things that coincide. Now, that being said, when it comes to UX, right, your designs need to be functional. The user experience needs to be a good user experience. And so that means that the interaction principles, the user interface elements are very similar to what we use when we're designing websites. So it's very important that you apply UX to either web or product. Sometimes there's like a notion that because you're working with something more of a free form like websites, then you have the freedom to do whatever you want, and you don't have to pay attention too much to the UX. It's not like that, because otherwise what you're doing is just makeup. If you're just focusing on the website, on the visual side and the animations and doing something cool and fancy, then you're just doing makeup design. And it's not really design, because design is something that is functional and that solves a problem. So if you're solving a problem the right way and you're creating results for your clients in a website, then that's UX. And so we cannot really separate. Honestly, I don't like the separation between UI and UX, because and this is like a terminology, I know, but to me, UX is everything, right? Even it touches development, because if there's a website that has a very slow performance and it slows down the user's computers, then that's going to create a bad user experience. Anyways, moving on, another thing that I think it's similar is the complexity. So I think it's different, but it's high in both. In product design, I think that the complexity is more in the scale, how to keep consistency and make sure that there's no loose end throughout the whole user journeys, right? And that's a very complex thing to solve when you're talking about, I don't know, 100 screens, right? But when we're talking about websites, I think the complexity comes with telling a story with the use of animations, visuals, concepts, making sure that the hierarchies are clear, so that it's clear what's the visual journey that the user needs to follow, what's primary, what's secondary, what's tertiary, etc. So the complexity is very high in both, but it's different. Now, the opportunities, I think, are very similar between the two in terms of job opportunities, right? Now, in web design, we have more amount of clients, because the product design industry is just the tech industry, right? We're talking about just products, or whether it's web or mobile apps. And so that means that product design is going to be a very small niche of businesses around the world. The rest of the businesses around the world, right? Whether it's like banks or I don't know, yoga instructors, whatever business there is around the world, most of them will eventually need a website if they grow big enough in their business, right? And so the opportunities, in terms of the amount of opportunities in web design, are probably going to be more than in product, but at the same time, you will also need more projects in web design because they are shorter, and we're going to talk about that later. But you're going to need less product design projects and more web design projects, because the web design projects are shorter than product design projects. So in terms of the money, it's very similar. I've earned mostly the same, and my rate hasn't changed because I was doing product or web. And so I can honestly tell you, that's not really a deal breaker. Now, granted, it's a little bit easier to get higher paying jobs at companies as a product designer than a web designer. That's true. But if you want to earn more money, then as a web designer, there's a lot of ways to do that. And basically, just being a freelancer or working as a contractual designer for agencies in abroad, if you're living in a third world country like me, or in your first world country, you can earn very similar and even more money than what you're earning at companies, product design companies. So the big question, right? Why not choose both? Well, first off, it's a totally valid path, but at the same time, it takes 10,000 hours to become a pro at one thing, right? That means 5 years full time. So web design is a different career and skill set than product design. And it's likely that you will prefer one over the other. So why not just do what you love, and I can assure you that money will come, right? So both will give you good money. It's just a matter of like, what do you prefer? So I want to leave you this question for you to think about. Ask yourself, if you were a millionaire, right? If nothing would be stopping you from choosing between one or the other, which one would you choose? Would you choose web design or would you choose product design? My appreciation, right? I have personally done both websites that won awards and also worked on 2 or 3 high-profile apps for Fortune 500 companies, like for example, one for Adidas, plus other apps for smaller startups, right? And so for me, product design is more tedious and boring. And I still enjoy it, but after 12 months of just seeing the same buttons, same user journeys, same colors, etc., I really get bored. And so personally, I prefer the more fast-paced type of work that changes every 1 to 3 months and is highly immersive and involves advanced visual animation and storytelling skills. So if you resonate with that, then remember to subscribe, because here I'm all about covering advanced web design and business skills. And if you have decided to focus on web design, but you don't really know where to start in order to get hired as a web designer, I really know how it feels because I've been there. And so the good news is that I have prepared a free course called the Web Design Booster to teach you the process that helped me get my first job and that I kept applying to get hired at MediaMonks, RGA, and get offered jobs at Apple and Microsoft. So I hope this video was helpful in terms of helping you gain clarity on what you want to do in your career. If you have any questions that come up based on what I just said, please feel free to drop me a comment and I can either answer the comment if it's a simple answer, or make a video to answer the question. And if you learned something today, as always, make sure to give it a thumbs up and make sure to watch this next video. And as always, let's bridge the gap one pixel at a time, my friend. See ya.